Hey everyone, can I build a good task manager in Notion from scratch? That's what we're going to find out in this video right here, which I'm doing live on YouTube, by the way. If you're here live with me, say hi in the comments. I will be keeping an eye on them as I do this. If you're watching the replay, feel free to leave a comment. So, there are many task management apps out there, and there are also lots of people who have tried to build their own task manager in Notion. But frankly, most of the Notion-designed task manager systems and most of the task management apps out there are not very good. There's a couple of things that you need to have a good task manager, and I have learned this over the years by teaching many people how to use a task manager properly, literally teaching thousands of paid students, but also tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people right here on YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and build a task manager in Notion from scratch. You're going to be watching me. That meets three specific criteria. The three criteria that I have for a task manager to be good. Criteria number one is it must be available on all of the devices that you use often. Now, Notion is available everywhere, so we're going to check that box right away. Criteria number two is that we need to make a distinction between completable projects and lists. So we need to have this kind of distinction between there's different areas of your life. You might have some home tasks, some work tasks, some health tasks, etc., right? Those are ongoing things. And you have discrete projects. So, for example, you have a project that is renovate the kitchen, right? Or a project at work that is write this report. That's something that you work on, and at some point you finish it. So those two things are different. And the third criterion is that we need for each task to distinguish between when are we planning to do this and when is this task due? What is the deadline? When does it absolutely need to be done by, or else there'll be some negative consequences? And this last one is one where almost every task manager ever and almost every task management system that I've seen people build in Notion goes wrong. Most apps, like really famous apps like Todoist, for example, just will not let you distinguish between when are you planning to do something and when is it due. But just because you have to pay a bill by next Friday at the latest doesn't mean you should do it next Friday. You should pay that bill ahead of time, just in case something goes wrong. If your friend Mark says, hey, can you look over my resume by Thursday? Are you going to do that on Thursday? I mean, ideally not. Ideally, you're going to do it ahead of time, but you have to do it Thursday at the latest. So that's such an important distinction, so I want to build that in. Anyway, that's enough intro. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to pop over into my Notion, and we're going to kind of pop back and forth between Notion and what I think is an example of a really good task manager, Things 3, but more on that later. Boom. Here we are in my Notion. Now, I use Notion for some things, but I don't use it a lot. So I'm not the world's biggest expert on this app, so you're just going to have to bear with me as I figure some stuff out on the fly. That's part of the fun for me. I'm doing this for fun, really. I'm pretty happy with my own task manager. I want to see if this is possible and also inspire you, and maybe this will be useful for you. So we need a couple of data units, a couple of data models, really, right? We have tasks. So actually, let's create a new page underneath this task manager page that I have here, and I'm going to call it, we're going to make it a table, and we're going to say a new database, and we're going to call that one tasks. Okay, so we've got a tasks table. Now we're also going to have a new one. We're going to call it table, and we're going to say projects. So new database, projects. There we go. So we have tasks and projects. We're going to have some more stuff, but let's start there. And tasks have a name. I like that. We could call it task maybe. That might be better. Actually, I think, yeah, let's call it task. Let's call it task. Okay. So task is actually what is the thing, right? So it might be water the plants. Okay. Water the plants is a good example. Let's do another one, and that is set a budget for kitchen renovation. Always good to start tasks with a verb, by the way. Always good, because then it's really actionable, right? Now, tasks are going to have some properties. What are the properties that they're going to have? Well, they're going to have, like I said, two dates attached. And so we're going to create a date property here, and we're going to call it scheduled for. That is to say, hey, when am I planning to do this task? That could be today, that could be tomorrow, next week, someday. Okay, could be someday. We'll talk about someday in a little bit. But that's why that is. And we're going to set the type to date. As you can see, I'm a little bit slow around Notion just because, like I said, I don't really do this very often. So it's kind of figuring things out on the go. We're going to create a new property, and we're going to call this the deadline. We could also call this the due date, but I find deadline just a more obvious name for this. And that one's going to be a date as well. And so we can customize some things here, I guess. Date format, full date. Time format, 12 hour. That's fine. 12 hours is fine. Okay. Now what we can do is we can create multiple views. It's one of the things you can do in Notion. You can actually change or add views. So you can look at the things you're putting in the table in different ways. So one of the things I could do here immediately is I could go add a view, and I could say scheduled tasks. And I will make that a calendar view. Click done. And now what can I do? I can go back to the main view and, wait, where did my tasks go? Oh, that is weird. I feel like there should be tasks here, no? Let's create a new one. Test. Notion. I don't think I filtered anything out here. Well, that is bizarro. Ah, saving. Okay, I see. Let's just quit Notion then. Well, that's upsetting, isn't it? Do we still not have them? Test. Where did my tasks go? There we go. Wow. Well, one of the reasons why, honestly, I don't like Notion as much as other people do. But there we go. Now we've got the tasks again. So let me go ahead and delete this. Delete. You can really see how comfortable I am with Notion. Delete. All right. Scheduled for. Now let's say that watering the plants is scheduled for today. And let's say that I'm going on, maybe I'm going on a trip or something on Sunday, so I have to do this latest Sunday morning, right, when I'm leaving. We can say include time. So if we want, we can say, you know, the deadline is maybe Sunday at 9 a.m. or something like that, okay? So this is pretty cool. And in the same way, for the set a budget for a kitchen renovation, what we can do is we can actually say, you know what, let's say I plan to do that tomorrow. There's not really a deadline for that. That's something that I can do anytime. But let's do another one. Pay the rent. And let's say we have a deadline there, and the deadline is the 25th of the month. Okay. Now, we have a scheduled tasks view. So what I'm going to go ahead is I'm going to go in here, and I need to adjust the properties by going edit view. Now, if I go to properties, I can say I can view scheduled for. Is that the one? No, that's not how this works. I need to say, what is it? Oh, yeah, there we go. There we go. Now they show up here. But why do they show up here? One page with no date. So I want to be able to say which date am I using for this scheduled task view, because I want to create another view, and I'm going to call this other view deadlines. There we go. Deadlines. Now we're going to say done here, and we're going to go scheduled tasks and deadlines. I want them to show something else, because what I want to do is, you see that water the plants, we scheduled it for today. Set the budget for the kitchen, we scheduled it for tomorrow. So that should show under scheduled tasks. But under deadlines, I actually want to see the tasks with deadlines. So now how can I go and say I want to show a different date here? I want this to use a different date property. I will go into layout, show calendar by deadline. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so these are two different views. This is, here I can see what is the last possible time that I have to complete these tasks by. So in case of pay the rent, I have to do this by the 25th of the month. In case of water the plants, I have to do this by the 9th. And I see that this is a little bit small. I wonder if I can display this a little bit bigger. Layout calendar. Can I maybe properties? Thanks, Hawker. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. You know that, like I said, this is going to be a little figuring out for me because I did not practice this. I realized it would have been a much smoother video if I had practiced this before, but I have not. So it's kind of an exercise to myself. Okay, now this is nice, right? But what I would actually really like is I'd like to have one view where I can see all my tasks that have either one of the dates assigned. So where I can see the earlier of the two dates. Right? So if a task has a deadline for, let's say, the 25th, I want to see it on the 25th. But if it has a deadline for the 25th and I have scheduled it for the 22nd, I want to show it on the 22nd. So let's see if I can do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new property and I'm going to call that a date. And now I wonder, can I do a formula here? It doesn't really seem like I can do a formula, but I would really like to. I would like to be able to say somehow the earlier of these two dates. So let's just have a quick search of that, and I will share my Firefox with you guys so you can see this. Notion date formula. Is that possible? Date lands in this week. No. Notion earliest of two dates. Is it possible to do the earliest of two dates? From timestamp min. Then get the smallest number. This only outputs when all three dates are filled. I have to look into it a little bit more. Okay, wow. This is, okay. So it looks like this is possible to do. Let's give this a go. We're going to go back to Notion, and I am going to call this the display date because that's how we want to display it. And we'll make this, I guess, a formula field then. So if we change this from type date to type formula, that should work. And now I can paste in the formula, and I just have to remove the third date thing. So 1, 2, parentheses, 1, 2, parentheses. Okay, so that should be good. And we'll call this scheduled for, and we'll call this one deadline. Now, does that work? Oi, this works. Okay. So what we have here is it only works if there's two dates. Okay, so that's interesting. So we need to have an if statement. So we need to have an if statement that says if they're both filled, pick the earlier one. If they're not both filled, pick the other one. That sounds like it's going to take a while. Maybe we'll get back to that later. But what I want to do is I want to have a calendar view here, and we'll call this one, let's just call it calendar, to be honest, and show calendar by display date. That's what I want to do. Okay, so maybe we'll get back to that later because I don't want to get too hung up on this. Maybe if someone is watching in the comments wants to do that formula for me, you can let me know and I'll paste it in later. But I want to go through some of the other things that are related to tasks. So tasks are going to have the name. They're going to have the date and time that they're scheduled for. They're going to have a deadline. We're going to calculate this display date. There's also going to be some notes. Tasks are going to have notes, and that's very simple. Okay, notes. Now, other than tasks, we are going to have projects. How do I define a project? A project is when you've got two or more tasks that are related tasks that are going to contribute to one, not two fingers, one finger, one outcome, right? So like I said, it might be renovate the kitchen. It might be write a report. It might be apply for a new passport, which has some sub-steps, right? So those are projects. There's a couple of related tasks, discrete chunks. You work through them, then you get one outcome. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go here and add some projects. One of them is called renovate the kitchen. Let's call the other one apply for a new passport. And perhaps we can do, what's a good one? Yeah, write report. Okay, I think that should be enough. Tags is interesting. We might be able to do some tags later, but I don't want to work on those now. let's do a couple things with projects. So first of all, projects themselves also need to have the scheduled date and the deadline. I want to be able to say this entire project has a deadline of next Friday. It needs to be done by next Friday. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to say scheduled for, and that'll be a date. Then we're going to create another date property, and we're going to call it deadline. And we are going to create another date property, and we are going to call it display date again. Sorry, that's not going to be a date property. That's going to be the formula, okay? And we'll do that formula again later. But now, what we want to do is we want to link projects with tasks. Now, I sort of kind of know how to do this in Notion, but I'll also kind of be figuring it out. So let's see. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to create a new property, and I think it's called like relation or something. It's either relation or roll-up. I never know. Let's say related to tasks. I think that's how that works. Preview projects. Learn about maybe I should read about relations, to be honest with you. Limit. Maybe I should do this the other way around. Maybe I should be in tasks, and I should create one here and say relation and say project. Tasks belong to projects. That sounds about right, doesn't it? Boom. Okay, so now we have that. If I do show on projects, how does that work? Update relation. Oh, this is going to get confusing. Okay, so let's say we have this task. Set a budget for kitchen renovation here, right? Maybe we should just squeeze these a little bit. Kind of want to create some space. Okay, and notes can always go to the back because that's a field that's sometimes going to be a bit bigger. Hello, you okay? I am okay, thanks. Sort of okay. Recovering from a cold. Also bacterial gut infection, so taking antibiotics and stuff. So sort of okay. Okay, set a budget for kitchen renovation. That should belong to the Renovate the Kitchen project. Now, if I go to this projects page over here, what happens? Shouldn't there be a tasks property here? I feel like there really should be. Isn't that how that works? Isn't it one backlink? That doesn't feel quite right. I wonder if I did that right. Let's see. Relation tasks. No, isn't that how that works? That is apparently not how that works. Oh boy. Or is it just hidden? Sometimes I know that not all properties are shown. You know, they're properties. But in this case, this doesn't work. I'm going to have to read about this. Okay, so let's go over to this type relation. And we're going to say, yep, projects. Learn about relations. So we're going to pop into Firefox real quick, guys. Using relations and roll-up properties. Have you ever? I have wanted to. Create a relation. Two-way relations are created as one-way by default, but you can easily, with two-way relations, the edits work both ways. So if you add that sounds like what I want. I want a two-way relation. Click the toggle that says yes, show on yes. Isn't that what I did, though? I feel like that's what I did. Okay. Show on projects. Related property on projects. Tasks. Ah, I see. Add relation. So, gotta go back to Notion so you guys can see this. There we go. So now, if I am, there we go. Now it works. Now we've got this task over here. Let's actually do another one. Let's see if I can have another task that says, get a quote for kitchen renovation. Or I'll just call it, let's say I'll call it get a quote. And now the project will say renovate the kitchen. So now if I go to projects, there'll be two tasks listed over here. Okay, great. So the reason I'm spending some time on this is it's actually really helpful to think this through for yourself. What is the data structure of the to-dos that you have in your life, right? At a very high level, your to-dos, you can organize them into different areas. You know what I'm saying? So you can organize them into homework, home tasks, work tasks, health tasks, et cetera, right? But Beyond that, there are these one-off projects, right, that we've got here. And one-off projects have tasks. Now, a task should belong to one project. I don't really want to be able to assign tasks to multiple projects because I think that's going to be confusing. But maybe we'll run into that problem a little bit later. But we've got a basic data structure here already. Now, we've got those tasks and projects, but I want to do those areas as well. I call them areas. Some people call them other things, but let's call them areas. I'm going to add another page here, and I'm going to call it areas. And then make that another database table. Make it a new database called areas. There we go. And honestly, maybe we should just drag these the other way around because this is kind of the more high-level stuff. So, for example, I like to do admin and finances, sort of fun and trips. And we can do health. That's a good one usually. Home, relationships, work. Those are some good ones to start with. Actually, I'll show you guys around Things 3, the app that I use to manage my tasks, because it's instructive. Here we're looking at my Things 3. What have I got here? I've got these areas over here in my life: admin and finances, business development, content marketing, fun and trips, etc., right? Relationships, stuff like that. So these are areas, and inside each of these areas, we've got projects. For example, under admin and finances, I have this Enter into Diversity Visa Lottery project, okay? So that's a project, and this project has tasks. So that's the same hierarchy that we're building in Notion right now, okay? And we can do the same thing with those dates. It's really the data model from Things 3 that I'm sort of replicating here in Notion, but not because I'm such a fanboy of Things 3, just because to me this is the only way that it makes sense. And that's why it's so disappointing to me that most task managers don't do this. And when I tell them that they should do this, they're like, blah, 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 like with Todoist. Anyway, a task I can set a when date, so that's the scheduled for date that we're building in Notion, or I can set a deadline. It's the last day that has to be done by, right? And same thing with the whole project itself. There's a deadline, but I can also set a when date and say, hey, I'm going to do this today. Now, there's a bunch of other things that we're going to do later, like I want to build an inbox. I want to build a today view. Like there is in Things. I want to build kind of an upcoming view. That's kind of the calendar that we were looking at. I want to make sure we have an anytime view and that someday view. Let's see whether we're going to get to all of that, because that's a lot. But that's the data model that I want to have. So let's go back over to Notion. Just so, go over to Notion. There we go. Just so we can keep going with this. Okay, so we've got these areas. Now, what I want to make sure to do is that projects and tasks belong to an area, so that we can say, hey, what are all of my home tasks and projects? What are all of my work tasks and projects, etc.? Okay, so let's do that. We're going to delete this tags property and say delete. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say plus, and we're going to say relation. And this is related to projects. So we're going to say show on projects. We're going to call it areas, add relation. And we're going to do, I guess, the same thing with tasks. Not sure if I'm going to be able to get all of this to look super pretty for you guys, by the way. But to me, I care more about the data model here than about how pretty it is. Let's say relation, and we're going to relate to tasks, show on tasks, call it, area again. Add relation. Okay, actually in projects I might have called it areas. I want to call it area. So I want to make it sort of one. Okay, renovate the kitchen. That's a home thing. So I'm going to say home. There we go. And now if I go to areas, under home, it says, hey, my projects at home are renovate the kitchen. Cool. So what else do we have? We have the apply for new passport. I'm going to call that an admin and finances project. Write report. Let's say that is a work project. So that's cool, because now if I go to areas, I can see, hey, under admin and finances, I have this particular project. Under home, I have this particular project. And now what happens if I click here? If I click this one, I can actually see my tasks as well. So that's pretty cool, right? But of course, we've got to go back to the tasks table and do something very, very important, which, to be honest, I probably should have done that earlier. We're going to create a new property. We'll do that over here. And we're going to call it checkbox. And we're going to call it done. it's kind of the point of a task manager is that you can check stuff off. So we're going to put that one, I suppose, at the front, yeah? And it's just called done. Because what I want to be able to do is say, I have done this, or I have not done this, right? And what I want to do is have different views. So for example, we can call this view, we're going to rename it, and we'll say to do. But we can also have a view and call it completed. Yeah, table, okay, good. And now what I can do is I can create, let's create a task, and maybe it's vacuum the house, because I did that earlier today. So let's say it was scheduled for today. And let's say I did that. What I want to do is I want to make sure that I don't see this one under to do, because I've already done it. So I'm going to say filter, and I'm going to say for this particular view that's called to do, I'm going to say filter by done, and it has to be unchecked. There you go. Now this particular view is only showing the tasks I still have to do. And in completed, we're going to do the exact opposite. So we are going to filter by done and say it has to be checked. Okay. Now, because we're only going to be showing tasks that are already done, here I don't need to see the done property. So I can actually say hide in view. And here in to do, I can also say, no, I do want to see it here. Well, you know what, actually, I probably should not do that, because what if you want to undo it? There we go. Hawkar says, you might want to consider using the status type field instead of checkbox. It's Notion's native status field that's useful when you start using the Kanban view. Yes, thanks for saying that. I have thought about the Kanban view. So Kanban is interesting, right? So what is Kanban? I'll actually show you guys what that is. I could create a property, and I could call that property status. And there we go. What I could do is I could drag that to the front, and instead of having done, I could have statuses. So I could say we have not started, in progress, and done. The thing is, this is not how task managers usually work. For example, a task manager like Things 3 or OmniFocus or even Todoist and stuff, they don't really have this feature. You have a task, and it's either done or it's not done. And the reason why that makes a lot of sense to me is because if there is something that's in progress, basically if you define your tasks well, you shouldn't encounter this very often. If I have a project that's renovate the kitchen, I say set a budget. That's something I'm going to sit down and I'm going to complete it, usually, right? Of course, sometimes you get interrupted and whatever, and it's fine. But I like to track my tasks at the level of detail where there isn't that much that is in progress, right? I have completed a portion of it, and I still have to do this other portion of it. So having lots of things in progress, to me, it doesn't feel good. And I think a lot of people feel the same way. It kind of feels icky to have started something but not have completed it. It feels nicer to break it down into chunks and say, I did these chunks, still have to do those chunks. So I'm not a huge fan of Kanban boards for tasks themselves. Now, for projects, it's a little bit different. For example, I do have here, I keep track of my YouTube videos, and I have a Kanban board there. When I have a YouTube video, there's different stages. There's me coming up with the idea. There's me writing the outline, filming, editing, uploading, publishing, all that kind of stuff. But I also have a project for that in my task manager that has very discrete steps that are much more detailed than the Kanban board. So the Kanban board's kind of helpful for larger projects maybe, but I don't personally rely on it. And I often forget to update my YouTube video Kanban board just because I'm working in my task manager. So I really appreciate that suggestion. I'm going to not do that for now. Maybe later I'll show how you could do this, but I don't find it the most useful way of thinking about it. I'd rather actually break down projects into small steps and then work through those small steps. So we have now areas, we have projects and tasks. That's a pretty good start because, like I said, if you're going to be searching for a task manager to use, first of all, for most people, I don't recommend building your own task manager in Notion. If you really, really want to use Notion for your task manager, just get a template. from someone who's made one. Maybe I'll turn this into a template that you can use. Who knows? Probably requires a little bit more work on it than just during this video. But if you're going to be searching for a good task manager, if you find one that is available on all the devices that you use very often, right? Which is important, because if it's not available for the devices that you use all the time, you're not going to end up using it. And so how are you going to get the benefit? But if it has that, if it also has that distinction between when are you going to be working on a task, when are you planning to work on it, and what's the deadline, what's the due date, when does it have to be done by? And if it has this concept of projects that you can complete, right, in addition to different areas of your life that you're organizing your life into, then it's probably going to be a great task manager already. It's probably going to have all the other things that you need in a task manager. So those are really the key things that you need to pay attention to. Okay, let's go back to Notion, and let's go to projects. And projects also need to be done or not done. So what am I going to do? Create another checkbox, and I'm going to call it done. Now, what I would really like to do is I would really like to have something where if the tasks that belong to this project are done, this thing is automatically done. But that might be a little bit tricky. Let's not worry about it. Let's just do it manually. I guess in Things 3, my favorite task manager, you have to do this manually as well anyway. Okay, so now we can do the same thing. We're going to actually say here, to do. Going to create another view, and we're going to call it completed. I mean, we can call it done, I guess. Maybe done is nicer. There we go. Projects that are done. And to do, we are going to just say filter, where done is unchecked. And for done, zip all the way over here. We are going to say filter, where done is checked. And so let's just create a new project, a demo one. What can I say? Install new sound panels on the walls, because you can see that sort of behind me over there. I've got some of those panels to reduce the echo in the room. Let's say I had to do that, and that was a work thing, even though I work from home. And let's say I'm done with that. Boom. Now under done, it'll live over there. So we've now built the basic areas, projects, and tasks thing. I still have in my head that I wanna figure out that thing about the task, about the display dates and the schedule for and deadline stuff, because I think that is actually very key. But I want to go back to that. First, I want to do a couple other things. What I would like to do is I would like to create a page. So I'm going to call that page here. I'm going to call it inbox. And what I'd like to do is I'd like this to show all tasks that don't have a project assigned or an area assigned. Let's see if I can manage to do that. Okay, we're gonna, yes, there we go. I'm gonna call it, here's inbox. And I guess, by the way, we can give these things icons, right? Add an icon. Is there an inbox icon? There is, isn't that lovely? There we go, inbox. Oh, okay, so then we can also do projects and tasks. Let's give that an icon. Task. What? Check. Okay. Project. Ooh, maybe like a construction icon. Projects and areas. Ooh, what could be an area? Like, it could be like a house or some. Yeah, that's the best thing that I can come up with right now. Okay. Let me know if you think of a better one. Okay, so in the inbox, what I want to do is I want to show, first of all, filter. Exactly. I want to see, hey, this doesn't seem right. If I change this, does that change it here as well? No, it doesn't. Okay, great. Okay, great. So I do want this filter, and I want to see tasks that are not done, but I also want to see tasks that don't have a project or an area assigned. So let's actually go back to tasks and just sort of drag area in front of projects there. Here, drag area in front of projects. So filter, we're going to add some filter rules. We're going to say the area is empty. How do I say empty? Add to advanced is empty. Yes. I guess filters and rules are not the same thing now. Okay, all right. And projects is empty. There we go. Look at that. So now we have an inbox. We have our tasks that have not been assigned to an area or to a project. So if you're on the go, you could quickly add a task to your inbox, and then periodically you could go through your inbox and sort your tasks into areas or projects, right? Okay, now notice that a task can have an area as well as a project, because I want to have that hierarchy where, hey, we have a home project, right? So a task lives in the home area, but it's also in this project, set a budget for a kitchen renovation. So this is neat. I really, really like this. Now let's see if we can build a today view. So we're going to do the same thing. Quickly add a page inside. I'm going to call it today. And, but this is interesting, because can we show both today's tasks and today's projects? I think that must be possible, but I am honestly not sure. So let's give it an icon. Now in Things 3, it gets a star icon. So let's do that. I actually like that. So that's today. And now if I, can I add like a block? Can I do blocks? I don't really understand how blocks work, to be honest with you. Table view. Yes. From tasks. Very good. This is what this is. Copy an existing view. Sure. Let's do tasks. Okay. So what do we want? Filter. Unchecked. Add a filter. And it has to be scheduled for today. But here's the interesting thing. Because I want to show tasks that are either scheduled for today or have a deadline that is today or even in the past that are overdue. Let's see if we can do that. I feel like with an advanced filter, we should be able to do that. Where scheduled for is on or before today. Or where the deadline is on or before today. There we go. And we got water the plants. Look at that. So we're really, this is working. This is working, and I'm excited about this. Now, what I would like to understand is how can I sort of add another view to this page? I feel like that is possible. There we go. So this is sort of the tasks. So I guess we could just call it tasks and projects, right? There we go. Yeah, so table view, and we're going to do we're going to do projects this time. Copy an existing view to do. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So now what we have is a bit ugly here with the scrolling. Let's see if we can fix that a little bit. First of all, we don't need to see scheduled for. Hide in view. Hey, this one should be called project. Does that get fixed here as well if I do that? It does. Okay. So still a bit wide, I would say. Maybe let's hide sort of the notes as well. Hide in view. Okay. I don't know why this still scrolls. Okay. Now let's say here for the projects, we also scheduled for, it doesn't make any sense. Deadline doesn't make any sense. Okay. Hide. Can we group these by area? That'd be great. Let's see if we can do that later. Now, what I want to do is just set a filter here and say, I want to see projects where, let's do an advanced filter. Scheduled for is on or before today. Or the deadline is on or before today. Okay. So we have no such projects, but I think one of the cool things about Notion, I think this is going to work, is if I create one here. I guess I already created one. And if I create a project, and what might this be? This might be buy new studio lights. And let's say that's for work, yeah? I think if I do that, because I'm creating it in this particular place, where we have set up some rules, like done has to be unchecked, and it needs to be sort of has within a certain scheduled for range and in a certain deadline range, I think those things are automatically going to be assigned. If I go to projects, Binding Studio License scheduled for today. Interesting. So it does work. Great. So we're getting somewhere. So now we actually have what I think is close to a functional task manager in Notion, which I'm excited about, actually, to be honest with you, because I had been wondering if this was going to go well. I've been wondering about this because, like I said, I didn't rehearse this. You can certainly tell. But Notion is proving more flexible than I thought it was, which is exciting. Okay. Let's see. We are showing projects and tasks. So this is sort of, hey, what am I going to work on today? Now, if I check this, boom, it's gone. That's nice. So I just have to go back to my projects and uncheck that. Sitting under today. There we go. Can we do an anytime view? So if I just show you guys things 3 again. Here's things 3. Now, one of the cool things is it has this anytime feature. And the anytime feature, it shows you a list of tasks that you could work on anytime, meaning you haven't already scheduled them for a specific date other than today. That's how that works in things. But basically, this is saying, this is tasks that I haven't said I'll do them someday, not going to get around to them soon. You also haven't said, I'm going to do them on this specific day in the future. So you can do them anytime, like right now. That's really handy, and I'd like to build that in Notion. There's also a thing called the someday view, which is just a way for you to say, you know what? I am not going to get to this sort of anytime soon. I'm going to only get to this someday. This someday I think is going to be a little bit trickier to build than anytime. So let's start with anytime. Go back to showing you Notion. Okay. Let's create a view. Call it anytime. Because honestly, I find this so helpful, because it's really nice to be able to look at a list of tasks, which is the ones that make sense to work on right now. I have worked with people sort of, I've taught a lot of students through my courses and also on YouTube. I also have worked with plenty of people one-on-one to help them get their tasks under control, really, organize their tasks. And I've seen people with up to like 1,200 tasks in their task manager, and they were all sort of listed, or most of them, as available to work on. And if you sit down in the morning, and even if it's just 300, if you have to choose from 300 things to work on, how can you possibly choose what's the most important? That's so difficult. So it's really important that you have this feature called Someday, where you can say, you know what, this is one of those things. I'm not going to get to it anytime soon. Don't show it to me. I want to see all the things that are sort of more relevant right now. And I like to define someday as I will probably not get to it in the next 2 weeks. That might sound quite aggressive, right? Someday you're thinking, really? 3 weeks from now is someday? That's how I interpret that for myself, and I think it works for a lot of people. That's the way I teach it. Okay, anytime. What we want to do, the anytime view, we want to pull tasks. So we're going to choose a data source, tasks. We want to pull those. They have to be, they're to-do tasks, but we have to set some filters on them. So let's set anytime right here. And I guess we can do like a clock. I mean, that kind of seems like if I do, clock should be more for scheduled stuff, no? Like a now? Is there like a anytime? Shrug. Okay, we're gonna make it a shrug. Doesn't matter when you work on it. Okay, let's set the filters. What is that? Done unchecked. Sure. I want done unchecked. Then I want to say add filter. Scheduled for. No, sorry. Delete. We want to have this advanced filter. Scheduled for is empty. Yes, scheduled for is empty. That is what we want. And if it's today, we want to, or, so as I add filter, or, scheduled for is today. Boom. Nice. So now we've got a list of our tasks that we could work on anytime. So this is working out so well. I'm really happy about this. This is working out really, really nicely. I will hide scheduled for and hide deadline. So by the way, no, I will not hide the deadline. I want to see that. I'll hide the display date because that's really meant for something else. One of the cool things, by the way, is you can always click on this and open. And you're sort of opening this page, and by the way, you can click on this button and you can sort of do this center peak thing or this full page thing. Anyway, that lets you edit things more directly, okay? That gives you the sort of the separate page where you can edit all of this stuff, where you can like add notes and whatever, or even like sort of add much more stuff. Anyway, I think this is going really well. So now we've got anytime. Now I want to build someday. Someday is a little bit tricky because someday is kind of a special date, you know? I would like there to be an option to be able to say, hey, this one is marked for someday. It kind of takes it out of all of the other stuff, you know? It means that it's not, it can't be scheduled for a certain date. But you see, if when I go to the tasks database and I click scheduled for, there is no date here that's someday. You know what I'm saying? So I need to think about how to do that for a little bit. But it's not my highest priority. Let's actually see if I can do this display date thing now, maybe, because that I think would be a little bit more useful. Because what I really would like to do is we have this calendar view here, and we're only showing water the plants right now. Let's see. That's the only one with a display date. That's because it has both of them. Yes, how do we do that? Well, we can say if. Is that not a thing? Oh man, I don't know how to write stuff in Notion, to be honest with you. If scheduled for no. You know what? This is time for some Googling. Notion write formulas. Math equations. Is it though? It's not really. If. That exists. If. And then parentheses. Yes, no. Okay. Concat. Okay. Let's do a new one, just so I don't break the display date I have. New display date. And we're going to say formula. Okay. Just so I can tinker around with this, make sure that I get it right, you know? Oh, wait, you're not looking at my Notion again. Here we go. Okay. Got a new display date over here. And I can say if the is empty. Is that a thing? Empty? Can I say not empty? Well, if empty, this one, oh, this is going to be such a pain in the ass formula. If empty, scheduled for, so 1, 2, 1, 2. If empty, scheduled for, and, can I do and? Empty, deadline, then I haven't done programming in a long time, guys. It's been a long time since I've done any programming. And empty deadline, then the display date should be nothing. But I'm in parentheses hell right now. So we've got this one closes this one. This one closes the empty statement. This one closes the if statement. Return nothing. And if this is true, false. Hey, wait, why am I not in focus? There we go. If they're not both empty, then we want the other thing. Okay, but first let's see if oh boy, this is such a pain. Maybe I should just Google this, to be honest with you. Okay, here's the logic, right? There are a couple options. Either one is empty, either scheduled for is empty, deadline is full, scheduled for is full, deadline is empty. They're both empty or they're both full. If they're both full, we want to take the earliest one. We've got that sorted. If they're both empty, then we definitely want nothing. Doesn't make any sense. But if it's scheduled without a deadline, or if it has a deadline without being scheduled, it's easy. We just want to pick that one. Okay, so how do we do that? Yeah, to be honest with you, I probably should just figure this out later, because I think you guys get the point. What I want to do is I just want this particular calendar to start showing, to show either if there is only a deadline, I want to show it with a deadline, like so, or if there is a deadline and a scheduled time, I just want it, let's say the scheduled is the 23rd, I want to show it on the 23rd. That's what I want to do. I think it should be possible. Don't feel like figuring that out on camera right now. Probably not the most compelling viewing for you guys. By the way, you can just drag this around. It's one of the really cool things about Notion is you can drag this around. Now, deadlines may not change that much, but let's say you're planning your week. One of the cool things you could do is you could say, you know what? I'm not going to get around to vacuuming the house today. Let me do that on Friday. Actually, one of the things I realized is vacuum the house. It's actually something that I did. So I need to filter here because I need to say done is unchecked. And for deadlines, we need to do the same thing. Unless you want to see past deadlines here. That's interesting. Do you? So we can call it scheduled to-dos. How about that? If we call it scheduled to-dos, that's descriptive. Because now it still thinks that we have to do. Let me say to-dos with deadlines. To-dos with deadlines. There you go. Now that works. And then calendar will be, we can just call it calendar. And so one of the things that we have in my favorite task management app, Things 3, is this upcoming view. Upcoming is really what I'm trying to do here with the calendar. That's really what I'm trying to do. So let's just actually delete this. No, I think there's a better way to do it, isn't there? I can actually create a page here and call it upcoming. And I can say table tasks. And now I can copy the calendar view. I think, oh, beautiful, beautiful. I'll drag that over here. And yeah, this is fine. Okay, so upcoming. In things, what icon do we have for this? We have a little calendar icon. Okay, we can do that. We can say calendar, spiral calendar. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I like the other ones better, to be honest with you. Yeah. Okay. There we go. I think it's pretty nice. So we just have to figure out that formula. To be honest, that's the only thing. Okay. There's a couple other things that I would want to do other than figuring out that formula. I would want to figure out repeating tasks. Let me just make myself a little bit bigger. I don't know why this being out of focus thing happens all the time. There we go. Repeating tasks is an important thing. So, for example, maybe you have to water the plants every day. There's got to be some mechanism for that, right? If you're looking for a task manager, almost every task manager is going to support that. So you're going to want to build that into Notion, but it starts getting complicated, you really are going to have to start working with formulas. We are going to have to work out the someday feature. How does that interact with the dates that we already have? We want to be able to set things aside to work on them someday, maybe later, right? We got to figure out that thing. I have such a good idea right now. There we go. Let's write down. We can start in our inbox, to be honest with you. Program someday feature. And we can say another one is figure out the display date formula. And another one that we want to do is, what was I just saying? Create repeating task functionality. Okay, there's a couple other things that we might want to do. But one of the nice things about Notion is that some things are already possible just out of the box. So for example, let's say I wanted to add an attachment here. I could just open it and I could just paste an attachment here, like an image or something like that. So that's pretty dope. Now, some other things that are cool in task managers is things like notifications. I have no idea if it's possible to send notifications in Notion at certain times, but that's a to-do. Figure out whether it's possible to send notifications in Notion based on date properties, right? So that's a cool thing. Anyway, why don't we do it this way? This was part 1. I'm trying to build a task manager in Notion. I'm going to do a little bit of research before we work on part 2. Maybe do that formula because I want to show you guys how this works. And I think it'll be quite fun to see how far we can take this, how far we can turn Notion into a really good task manager. And the reason I wanted to do this, let me make myself big again. The reason I wanted to do this is because it's fun for me just to try and figure this out. But also because, honestly, the only task managers that I think are really good enough for people to use, there are 3 of them. One of them is Things 3, which is my favorite, the one that I recommend for most people. The other one's OmniFocus, which is the first one that I sort of started using seriously many, many years ago now, and which is still quite good. I just think Things is a little bit better right now. And both of those are only available on Apple devices. So that's a big problem. The big reason why I want to do this here is because Notion is available everywhere. But hold on. The third one is an app called Nirvana. That's the third one. So Nirvana is quite good as well. Does all of these things. Very, very nice. But the interface is a bit dated. Nirvana is quite old looking. It works, and it's available on sort of all platforms. But doesn't really feel modern, Anyway, because Things in OmniFocus, the primary good ones that, and by the way, really, I really don't know of other task managers that make this distinction between when are you planning to do it and when is the deadline, which is like, once I teach this to people, a lot of people are like, that makes so much sense. There really aren't very many task managers out there that do that. So because that's the case, and because Things in OmniFocus are only available on Apple devices, so not on PC, right? Not on Windows, not on Android, that's frustrating. And I just wanted to see if I can make a system in Notion, which is available on all platforms, that works for people. So let's call this part 1. I'm going to do a little research, and then I'll come back to you sometime soon and probably fill the rest of it out live in part 2. Thanks for watching. Leave some comments if you want. If you enjoyed seeing me struggle while doing this. So see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.